sniffles. Oh, and then what the side effects of most of these pharmaceutical drugs have. They're all made from oil. 90% of them. Do your research. You'll find out that you're eating poison. I'm telling you, it's part of the rat poison. They're trying to cut the population of the earth down. 90%. Georgia Guidestones. Google it. Look it up. They tell you 500,000 is all that can live on this planet. There's 6 billion people right now. Which leads me to my article. I got gnats in the air. Over the last several years, I've evolved and discarded several theories in an attempt to explain why it is that most people cannot see the truth, even when it smacks them in the face. Those of us who can see the conspiracy have participated in countless conversations amongst ourselves that address the frustration of most people's inability to comprehend the extremely well-documented arguments which we use to describe the process of our collective enslavement and exploitation. The most common explanation to be arrived at is that most people just don't want to see what's really going on. Extremely evil men and women who make up the world's power elite have cleverly cultivated a virtual posture so grass green that few people seldom, if ever, bother to look up from where they are grazing long enough to notice the brightly colored tags stapled to their ears. I call them, and they call them, the sheeple. The same people who cannot see their enslavement for the pasture's grass has a tendency to view as insane conspiracy theorists. Those of us who can see past the farm and into the parlor of his feudal lordship's castle. Finally, I understand why. It's not that those who don't see that their freedom is vanishing under the leadership of the power elite don't want to see. They simply can't see what is happening to them because of the unperceived veils that block their view. All human endeavors are a filtration process. Sports is one of the best examples. We play a specific sport until we get kicked off the playground. Pro athletes we pay big bucks to watch just never got kicked off the playground. Where millions of kids play Little League each spring, they are filtered out until there are 50 guys who go to the World Series in October. Behind the first bell, there are over 6 billion people on the planet. Most of them live and die without having seriously comprehended anything other than what it takes to keep their lives together. 90% of humanity will live and die without having perceived the first bell. This is the first bell. The first bell. 10% of us will perceive the first bell and find the worlds of politics. We will vote, be active, and have opinion. Our opinions are shaped by the physical world around us. We have a tendency to accept that government officials, network media, personalities, and other experts are voices of authority. In other words, you believe whatever you're told on TV. 90% of the people in this group will live and die without having pierced the second bell. The second bell. 10% of us will perceive the second bell to explore the world of history, the relationship between man and government, and the meaning of self-government through constitutional and common law. 90% of the people in this group will live and die without having pierced the third bell. The third bell. 10% of us will perceive the third bell to find that the resources of the world, including people, are controlled by extremely wealthy and powerful families who incorporated old world assets have, with modern extortion strategies, become the foundation upon which the world's economy is currently indebted. 90% of the people in this group will live and die without having perceived the fourth bell. The fourth bell. 10% of us will perceive the fourth bell to discover the Illuminati, Freemasonry, and other secret societies. These societies use symbols and perform ceremonies that perpetuate the generational transfer of arcane knowledge that is used to keep the ordinary people in politics, economics, and spiritual bondage to the oldest bloodlines on earth. 90% of people in this group will live and die without ever perceiving the fifth veil. The fifth veil. 10% of us will perceive the fifth veil and learn that the secret society so far advanced technologically that time travel and interstellar communications and travel too have no boundaries, and controlling the actions of people is what their members do as offhandedly as we tell our children when they must go to bed. 90% of people in this group will live and die without having perceived the sixth veil. The sixth veil. 10% of us will perceive the sixth veil, where the dragons and lizards and aliens we thought were the fictional monsters of childhood literature are real and are the controlling forces behind the secret societies. 90% of people in this group will live and die without perceiving the seventh veil. The seventh veil. I do not know what's behind the seventh veil. I think it's where your soul is evolved to the point you can exist on earth and be the man Gandhi or the woman Peace Pilgrim. Was people so enlightened they brightened the world around them no matter what? The eighth veil? Piercing the eighth veil probably reveals God and the pure energy that is life force in all living things, which are, I think, one and the same. If my math is accurate, there are only 60,000 people on the planet who have perceived the sixth veil. The irony here is too incredible. Those who are stuck behind the veils 1 through 5 have little choice but to view the people who have pierced the veils beyond them as insane. With each veil perceived, exponentially shrinking numbers of increasingly enlightened people are deemed insane by exponentially increasing masses of decreasingly enlightened people. Add to the irony, the harder a sixth or better veiler tries to explain what he is able to see to those who can't, the more insane he appears to them. Our enemy, the state. Behind the first two veils, we find the great majority of people on the planet. They are tools of the state. Second veilers are the gullible voters, whose ignorance justify the actions of the politicians who sent the first veilers off to die in foreign lands as cannon fodder. Their combined stations in life are to believe that the self-serving mechanisms of the power elite are a matter of national security worth dying for. Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth veilers are of increasing liability to the state because of their decreasing ability to be used as tools to consolidate power and wealth of the many into the hands of the power elite. It is common for these people to sacrifice more of their relationships with friends and family, their professional careers and personal freedoms with each veiler they perceive. Albert J. Nock, 1870-1945, author of Our Enemy the State. 1935 explained what happened to those who find the seventh and eighth veils. What was the best that the state could find to do with an actual Socrates and an actual Jesus when it had them was to merely poison one and crucify the other for no reason but they were too intolerably embarrassing to be allowed to live any longer. Conclusions? And so, now we know that it's not our countrymen are so committed to their lives that they don't want to see the mechanisms of their enslavement and exploitation. They simply can't see it. As surely as I cannot see what's on the other side of a closed curtain. The purpose of this essay is threefold: to help a handful of people in the latter veils to understand why the masses have little choice but to interpret their clarity as insanity. 2, to help people behind the first two veils understand that living, breathing, and thinking are just the beginning. And 3, show people that the greatest adventure of our life is behind the next veil, because that is just one less veil between ourselves and God. The end of that article. So now you understand what they're talking about. I mean, those are the 8 veils. Like I said, I'm at the 8th veil looking back. I just haven't become public as much. YouTube, I guess, doesn't really count for public enough for them to come after me or contact me, try to pay me off. At first I wanted to be part of this, but they never accepted me and never invited me. So now I'm an adversary to them, because I now see everything that they do, and I want everyone else to know what they're doing, how they're robbing you, destroying you, poisoning you, your children, your children's children. Do you realize that the poison they're putting in your food is sterilizing the males and the females of this generation? That they will have less and less chance of having children, and the only ones that will have children are the ones that they allow to keep the population at a certain level? I hope you realize this. I mean, population normally drops off. This is a known fact. Population will drop off in third world countries if they become technologically advanced, just like in America. You know that there's only 1.1 children being born by white people in America, the intelligent, and most blacks in America who are intelligent. The more intelligent you are and the more advanced you are technologically, the less children you have, because you don't worry about having any of your offspring dying on you. In the old days, it used to be more children and young women that died. If you go to a graveyard, go to an old graveyard, say in the 1800s, in the early 1900s, and see what the death rate of mortality is, and you'll see it's mostly children and young women who didn't survive birthing. You just do your homework. And that's why they had more than one child, because they wanted to guarantee that at least one child, if they made it past the age of 12 to 15, would live to be 80 to 90 years old. Don't you have a great-great-grandmother or something that's still alive today who was 90 years old, 100 years old before they died? That's because they made it past that threshold back then, that they lived to be as old as they were. I mean, it's not hard to understand any of this. I just did my research. I just wish all of you would go now and do your research and learn who is behind the veil, who's behind the curtain. Don't listen to the voice of the great illusion telling you, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. That's the person very well you should unveil to find out who's running, who's pulling the strings, who are the puppet masters, who run the governments, who run Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush Sr., Ford, Carter, Nixon. Keep going back.